There was a natural scenario for bitterness by farm workers who felt they were treated with, in some cases, with humiliation, were fired without cause. Perhaps there weren't adequate toilet facilities or fresh water. And those were all things that were legitimate grievances by workers that farmers were negligent to improve upon.
Come on up, brothers. We are waiting for you. You are earning more money today because the workers here were not on strike on September the 9th, and they are still out on strike. Does it make you feel good to know that you are taking your brother's job? Come on.
The NFWA pleaded, cajoled, and sometimes embarrassed reluctant farm workers into joining the walkout. To be successful, the strike needed a strong, unified stand against growers who had power and money on their side.
Read it and sign it. Les corté un papel para cada uno.
3 weeks after the walkouts, close to 3,000 farm workers were on strike, affecting dozens of farms in the southern San Joaquin Valley.
We're fighting for recognition, which is the real guts of it. It doesn't matter now how much money they're offered. They wouldn't go back because what they want is a union before they go back.
Let me ask you this. What do you think of the idea of a union for farm workers?
I think it's ridiculous.
Why do you say that?
Well, I won't go into that with you either. You ask me what I think. This is what I think. I will say this. Farm wages in the last 12 months right in this area has increased from $1.10 to $1.60 an hour.
Isn't that because of the strike?
No, that's nothing whatever to do with it.
What is that because of?
I'm not going to go on into these questions with you.
One other question. Do you think that without a union, the farm workers can improve their condition and create better?
It has been done right here.
Mm-hmm.
Quite a bit.
Is this camp evidence of that?
This camp has greatly improved in the last year.
Mm-hmm. Would you want to live?
Since I have been here.
Would you want to live in this camp?
I wouldn't live here. You know, you're being very impudent. Would I want to live here? This is, I call, an impudent question.
The growers fought back, bringing in replacement workers by the busload, attacking strikers with legal injunctions.
We have to be 60 feet from that property line, 60 feet from this property line, which puts us somewhere up in the air. For all intents and purposes, we have no right to picket.
The reason we couldn't win the strike in the fields was because the growers had access to an endless supply of strikebreakers. They had all kinds of access to injunctions that would limit the effectiveness of our picket lines so that we couldn't speak to the strikebreakers. So if we can't stop the grapes here, where they're being harvested, then where can we stop it? And so logically, the next place to stop it would be where it goes.
Strike leaders took their struggle out of the fields and into the marketplace, calling for a nationwide consumer boycott against grapes and grape products.
As long as you're fighting solely on grower turf, you're fighting, in effect, with one hand tied behind your back. So when you start to boycott, what you're doing is you're expanding the playing field.
Out of more than 30 growers being struck, 2 were targeted for boycotts. Shenley Ranch, owned by Seagram's, and the DiGiorgio Corporation, which produced Tree Sweet and S&W products.
You've got to get out there with a picket sign and get some action going. And when you put all of those things together, then nonviolence works. And the only way I know to organize...
As the strike continued, it became more than a labor issue, and Cesar Chavez became more than a labor leader.
We know that those of you who came from the outside, from distant places to be with us, you have come here at sacrifices to yourselves and to your families. Believe me, we appreciate your efforts, and we invite you to come with us and come and visit us again and again here in Delano, where you have many, many friends now.
Cesar also made it a movement, a civil rights movement, and he made this clear that it was a civil rights movement. It was not just another union. You see, it was just not another labor strike. He was a national civil rights leader. And he was talking about the same things as Martin Luther King, nonviolence. He was talking about human rights that went beyond just the economic aspect that unions operate. Getting more wages, better labor conditions. How about the children? How about the racism in the school? You see, how about the local cops? And these are the things that the farm workers were about.
Que el amor debe ser vivido en las acciones de los hombres.
Responding to the boycott, the Senate Migratory Subcommittee opened hearings to investigate the plight of farm workers. Senator Robert Kennedy interrogated the local sheriff, trying to understand why striking workers were being arrested.
If I have reason to believe that there's going to be a riot started and somebody tells me that there's going to be trouble if you don't stop them, then it's my duty to stop them.
Well, then you go out and arrest them?
Well, absolutely.
And charge them?
Charge them.
What do you charge them with?
Violating unlawful assemblage.
Who told you that they're going to riot?
The men right out in the field that they were talking to said, if you don't get them out of here, we're going to cut their hearts out. So rather than let them get cut, you remove the cause.
This is the most interesting concept, I think. The fact that somebody makes a report about somebody's going to get out of order, perhaps violate the law, and you go in and arrest them, they haven't done anything wrong. How can you go arrest somebody if they haven't violated the law?
They're ready to violate the law, in other words.
Could I suggest from the luncheon period of time that the sheriff and the district attorney read the Constitution of the United States?
Two significant things came out of those hearings. One was just the fact that Bobby Kennedy came to Delano. And he got to meet Caesar, he got to meet the other leaders of the National Farm Workers Association. And secondly, the hearings just gave visibility to the Delano strike. I mean, it did the opposite of what the growers wanted. The growers wanted invisibility and localization and, crush it locally. That's the strategy. For the strikers, the more statewide and national publicity, the better.
We have to come clearly to the conclusion that an ignored part of our population have been the farm workers. That the farm workers have suffered in our society over the period of the last 30 years, and that situation has to be changed.
Farm workers had been on strike for 5 months with no solution in sight. Union leaders needed to find a new way to win over the American public. Cesar Chavez decided to make a peregrinación, a pilgrimage. Starting in Delano, he planned to march 300 miles to the state capital in Sacramento. Along the way, he hoped to recruit enough men, women, and children to focus national attention on the farm workers' cause. Marchers realized that their route would pass through hostile territory in the heart of the San Joaquin Valley.
Con el escandor hermoso de nuestra guadalupana van marchando a Sacramento nuestra gente mexicana.
It opened the farm worker struggle beyond Delano, and it was to take the message of the farm worker struggle to farm workers all up and down the valley. The other thing that it did was take head on the fear that most people felt in the valley. So you kind of grew up or lived with this kind of unspoken fear of knowing that there was this side and that side of the tracks, that there were places you couldn't go, that there were ways you would be treated.
The San Joaquin Valley is full of those limitations, of those barriers and those lines that you never crossed. Well, this march crossed them. It crossed them all. It was, to me, a literal taking of the territory.
As the marchers passed through each town, more and more sympathizers came out to join their pilgrimage. Each night along the route, they attended rallies and listened to updates on the boycotts against Shenley and DeGiorgio. Each morning began with Mass, and then the marchers fell in behind the patron saint of the Mexican people, the Virgin of Guadalupe.
She represented the very soul of the people. It fused everybody into one raza, so to speak. But it also legitimized us in the sense that it told the world, okay, we are followers of the Virgen de Guadalupe, we're not followers of Karl Marx.
These religious gestures angered many of the growers, who normally knelt and prayed in the same churches as the marchers.
You're talking about people that attended St. Mary's Catholic Church in Delano, along with Caesar. You know, that's where I was baptized. I mean, along with all the farm workers. And they considered themselves to be on the side of God, like everybody else. These are good people. These are good, hard-working immigrant descendants. So when Caesar began to implement the uses of religious imagery in his struggle, many of the growers resented it, took it personally. They said, we are not the devil. We are also Catholics. Consequently, the church, in trying to relate to this struggle, found itself torn. On the one hand, there was this very powerful, moneyed, and political constituency that the growers represented that was important to the church. And on the other hand, these were the poor, the working poor.
Waiting, 2, 3, go!
At rallies along the march, the Farm Workers Theater, Teatro Campesino, performed skits ridiculing the growers. Originally created on the picket lines, the teatro now recruited local farm workers to be actors in the plays.
Oh, hello, baby! Hey, baby! Don't do that, boy!
I found out that one of the hardest things for me to do was to get campesinos to act like growers.
Boy! How would you like to be a rancher for a daddy? Oh, no, you're not. Oh, yeah, you're not.
But the moment that they did the boss, they changed. They became better organizers. They became, like, confident and in control of themselves. And Caesar saw this, so the teatro started to develop a lot of the early organizers that the union sent to places, sent them out into cities to work on the boycott, or sent them out to other areas to organize farm workers, who became a source of organizers, just strictly on the strength of self-expression, of speech and drama.
No hay nada más bajo que un esquirol, 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 esquirol.
That was the very first time in my life that I had ever seen art being used on that level. And it made a major impact on me.
We still claim that there are reds and agitators. Hold on. Among you Mexicans.
Chicano art had a very, very important role within the Chicano movement. It gave visual form to our dreams, our aspirations, our struggles. Because we did not own the media, we didn't own the television, we didn't own the radio, we didn't own the movies, we owned nothing at all. The only way that we could, in many respects, get the word out, be visible, was to create posters, murals, paintings, banners, whatever. It took that form, and in that way we were able to disseminate information. You know, not only the positive things, but the negative things. I mean, who we are, our indigenous roots, and our connection to the land, our love of family and home and community.